Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Jiang Nan also rushed behind Wang Donga. Everyone encircled her and treated her like an enemy. Wang Chua said coldly, "I won't hand him over unless you let me say my piece. I want to let all of you know what he did." Bei stepped forward and was about to act up, but Wang Donga immediately lifted her arms and shook her head at the rest. "Don't be like that. Let her speak. I can handle it." The sad look in Wang Donga's eyes became even more intense. However, she wasn't in the mood to pick on Wang Chua. Hu Yuhao had returned, he had finally returned. Even though she didn't know how he was, he must be fine since Wang Chua claimed that he wouldn't die. It was fine as long as he was alive. It was still better than Tang Yue and Ma Xiaodao, who were both still missing. She had already thrown everything else from her mind. As long as Hu Yuhao was safe, she was willing to accept anything that he had with Wang Chua. The 10 days of waiting had taught her one thing, that she was willing to do anything in exchange for Hu Yuhao's safety. "Donga, you are too kind," Bei sighed. However, he didn't go against her wishes. Wang Donga revealed a sad smile and said, "It's fine since he has returned. I'm satisfied since he's returned safely. Wang Chua, tell me what you want to say." Wang Chua scanned everyone coldly and said, "From your looks, all of you seem to think that I eloped with him. HMPH, all of you are his good friends. Is he really like all of you imagine him to be?" Everyone was stunned by her words. Yes. They had been thinking about what had happened between Hu Yuhao and Wang Chua after they left together. Wang Donga was also stunned. She saw an outraged look in Wang Chua's eyes. Wang Chua said coldly, "I feel bad for him. In the past 10 days, he has almost died 3 times. However, he pressed on every time. I tried to stop him from taking risks, but he resisted and continued to proceed stubbornly. Do you really think he eloped with me?" Shu Sancha furrowed his brow. "How come you left together?" "He even left without saying anything." Wang Chua replied, "He left without saying anything because he was anxious. I don't know how he found out Wang Donga was sick." Shu Sanchi's eyes widened. "You're the sick one." Wang Chua focused her gaze, and a sharp light flashed within them. However, she still suppressed her anger. Wang Donga's figure shook slightly. An unhealthy red appeared on her face, and tears streamed down her cheeks. At that point, he still used his eyes to tell me to bring this yearning heartbroken grass back to treat your injury. If not for the fact that I used an herb to preserve his life, he would have died. Wang Chua recounted everything that had happened to the both of them over the past 10 days. After hearing her accounting of events, everyone's expressions changed greatly. Jiang Nan and Xiao Xiao were even crying. They hadn't expected Hu Yuhao to experience so many ordeals over the past 10 days. He had even been on the brink of death several times, before he finally managed to pluck the yearning heartbroken grass. When they heard that the ultimate ice in his body had raged out and the blood that he spat out had frozen up, leaving him no choice but to swallow the blazing sunspring water, Bei, Hikaitu, and Shusanshi's eyes also welled up. What kind of love was this? Hu Yuhao used his actions to tell them how much he loved Wang Donga. Wang Donga stopped crying as she heard more and more of what Wang Chua said. Her body was trembling non-stop, shaking uncontrollably. Yuhao, Yuhao, Yuhao. Her mind was only filled with his name right now. Yuhao, Yuhao, my Yuhao. For me, you actually. What injury? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me face all this with you? Yuhao. At this moment, Wang Donga was heartbroken. She spat out blood, and a few drops landed on the yearning heartbroken grass on the side of Hu Yuhao's face. The yearning heartbroken grass shook slightly and absorbed the few drops of fresh blood. Following this, a dim red glow emanated from the flower. The red glow formed 2 rings in the air, which looped over Hu Yuhao and Wang Donga. A weird intent was also released by the yearning heartbroken grass. There were no words, but Shrek's 7 monsters and Wang Chua could understand what it meant. It roughly meant together through life and death. The contract of love. If one died, both would die together. The lives of these lovers would be connected. There would be no abandonment, and their love would carry on for eternity. Wang Donga had formed a strange contract with Hu Yuhao at this moment, with the yearning heartbroken grass as a witness. Wang Chua was stunned. She could also sense the intent from the yearning heartbroken grass. Her face turned even more dismal, and she looked a little lost. She put Hu Yuhao down carefully, right in front of Wang Donga. "He only has you in his heart. Even though we look similar, I was never in his heart. When he plucked the yearning heartbroken grass, I knew that I had fallen in love with this man. I am deeply in love with him. I feel very tormented that I was a step late. There can never be a second woman in his heart. You must take care of yourself for him. You must take care of him, too. The herb that he consumed will help him to recover slowly. However, I'm not sure whether he will be able to fully recover. Wang Qiuwa paused as she finished those words. She took a deep look at Wang Donga and said, "You've won." In his eyes, "I was probably never your competitor, and you probably never had any competitors before. Love him properly." Frubuvel.cm. Wang Donga received Hu Yuhao carefully. She hugged him as she bowed to Wang Qiuwa. "Thank you. Thank you for saving his life. If you need my help one day, I'll do anything to help you." Wang Qiuwa didn't say anything. She only turned and walked away. It was only when the Shrek's 7 monsters couldn't see her that her tears started to stream down her face. She quickened her footsteps, as she didn't want others to see her weakness. However, she was also heartbroken. The yearning heartbroken grass shook slightly and absorbed the few drops of fresh blood. Following this, a dim red glow emanated from the flower. The red glow formed 2 rings in the air, which looped over Hu Yuhao and Wang Donga. A weird intent was also released by the yearning heartbroken grass. There were no words, but Shrek's 7 monsters and Wang Qiuwa could understand what it meant. It roughly meant together through life and death. The contract of love. If one died, both would die together. The lives of these lovers would be connected. There would be no abandonment, and their love would carry on for eternity. Wang Donga had formed a strange contract with Hu Yuhao at this moment, with the yearning heartbroken grass as a witness. Wang Qiuwa was stunned. She could also sense the intent from the yearning heartbroken grass. Her face turned even more dismal, and she looked a little lost. She put Hu Yuhao down carefully, right in front of Wang Donga. "He only has you in his heart. Even though we look similar, I was never in his heart. When he plucked the yearning heartbroken grass, I knew that I had fallen in love with this man. I am deeply in love with him. I feel very tormented that I was a step late. There can never be a second woman in his heart. You must take care of yourself for him. You must take care of him, too. The herb that he consumed will help him to recover slowly. However, I'm not sure whether he will be able to fully recover." Wang Qiuwa paused as she finished those words. She took a deep look at Wang Donga and said, "You've won." In his eyes, "I was probably never your competitor, and you probably never had any competitors before. Love him properly." Wang Donga received Hu Yuhao carefully. She hugged him as she bowed to Wang Qiuwa. "Thank you. Thank you for saving his life. If you need my help one day, I'll do anything to help you." Wang Qiuwa didn't say anything. She only turned and walked away. eWebnovel.com. It was only when the Shrek's 7 monsters couldn't see her that her tears started to stream down her face. She quickened her footsteps, as she didn't want others to see her weakness. However, she was also heartbroken. Wang Donga hugged Hu Yuhao and felt the weak undulation of his life aura. She lowered her head slowly and pressed her lips to Hu Yuhao's dry lips. Her lips were very cold and slightly moist. "Yuhao, I'm your wife from now on. No matter whether or not you recover, I'll always be your wife. I love this contract. As long as you are alive, I'll wait for you my entire life. If you die, I'll leave with you. In the other world, I'll continue to wait on you. Forever and ever. Yuhao, I love you." Wang Donga's voice was very gentle, but it was the gentleness of her voice that made the rest emotional. Bei Bei, Shusansha, and He Kai-tu couldn't control the tears in their eyes. Jiang Nan Nan leapt into Shusanshi's arms. Xiao Xiao also did the same thing to He Kai-tu. They were bawling their eyes out. Wang Donga didn't cry. There was only a look of gentleness in her big, beautiful eyes. She carefully carried Hu Yuhao and turned around slowly as she looked at the rest. "Eldest senior, can I trouble you to find some food? I want to eat some food. Third senior, please help me get the best healing type soul master in the academy. I'll bring Yuhao back first." Even though she still seemed very pale, and her lips were still stained with blood, the look in her eyes shocked the rest of them. She suddenly looked very tough and resolute. After returning to her room, Wang Donga started to get busy. She got a clean blanket for Hu Yuhao before inviting Jiang Nan Nan and Xiao Xiao to leave the room. She was trembling slightly as she removed Hu Yuhao's clothes and bandages. After that, she used clean water to wash his entire body before giving him clean clothing. She also rebandaged his wounds. At this moment, she didn't care about her own shyness anymore. Finally, Wang Donga took the yearning heartbroken grass from Hu Yuhao's face and placed it beside his pillow. Elder Xian, Yang Xiaozhe, Cai Maya and a few elders from the Sea God's Pavilion quickly made their way over. Hui Yuhao's injuries shocked all of them. When they heard that Hui Yuhao had received these injuries for Wang Donga, they felt a little helpless. For love, he was willing to go to such an extent. Where is this rascal Hui Yuhao? Elder Xian couldn't help but curse. Wang Donga stood up hurriedly and said respectfully, Elder Xian. Elder Xian was furious as he walked into the room. He quickly came to the bedside and pressed his hand against Hui Yuhao's mouth, sensing his condition. He only lifted his hand after a while. He's in a bad state. Elder Xian furrowed his brows and couldn't help but curse, this rascal, why didn't he report something like this to the academy? Donga, who told him that you were injured? Let me take a look. As he spoke, he lifted his hand and pressed it against Wang Donga's shoulder. After sensing for a brief moment, he revealed a weird look on his face. There's no injury, but there's a weird force in your body. It doesn't seem like soul power. However, my powers strangely can't seem to capture it. If we are talking about an internal injury, this must be it. Elder Zhuang, take a look at him. As he spoke, Elder Xian gestured to another elder. This elder was also a member of the Sea God's Pavilion. He cultivated a plant-type martial soul, and was skilled in healing. Elder Zhuang came to the bedside and also pressed his hand against Hui Yuhao's mouth. Soul rings started to rise from his feet. 2 yellow, 2 purple and 5 black rings appeared. He was a titled Doluo. Vibrant-looking green vines spread from his body and moved around Hui Yuhao. Very soon, his entire body was engulfed by the vines. Rewebnal.cm. An intense life aura was released by the vines as Elder Zhuang's soul rings lit up. The vines were also shining with different colors of light. After a time, Elder Zhuang retracted the vines. He gently shook his head and said, he's indeed in bad shape. His injuries were very serious. Most importantly, there's a blazing heat in his body that doesn't belong. It clashes with his ultimate ice. Apart from his own ultimate ice soul power, there's also origin energy in his body. It's all very messy. Under such a situation, the ultimate ice can't expel the heat, or neutralize it. Furthermore, his internal organs are also badly burned. Honestly speaking, he should have died from such serious injuries. However, there's a force in his body sustaining his life. He must have eaten some herb that's helping him recuperate. It's just that the speed of recuperation is very slow due to the clash between ice and fire in his body. Elder Xian said, what should we do then? Can you treat him? Elder Zhuang shook his head and answered, no. My treatment is mainly carried out by pouring in life power. But his own life power isn't weak, so there's no need for that. In addition, we can't just recklessly treat his injuries. If too much soul power is poured in, the unstable forces in his body might be released, and his life might be in danger. To him, the best treatment is to rest. He'll wake up when the herb heals the injuries in his body, and he'll also be able to control the circulation of his soul power when he wakes up. His injuries will also slowly recover then. It's the same for his hands. It's better for him to recover on his own. Elder Xian asked, will he be able to make a full recovery? Elder Zhuang replied, I can't tell. It's too messy. How could his body accumulate so much origin energy? While it's good stuff, we can't have too much of it. Not only is he gravely injured, he seems to have taken too many tonics. Whether or not he can make a full recovery will be up to him, but I'm sure his life isn't in danger anymore. Elder Xian sighed and commented, this rascal is really worrying. Elder Zhuang, I'll have to trouble you over the next few days. Elder Zhuang nodded and said, don't worry, he's the future pillar of our academy. I'll help him recover no matter what. I'll check on him twice a day from now. As his body's condition changes, I'll adjust my treatment accordingly. Elder Xian sighed and nodded, that would be great. Bei Bei and the rest rushed over at this moment. Bei Bei even brought some food for Wang Donga, a bowl of chicken soup. It was nutritious and easily digestible. As the eldest senior, Bei Bei had always been very meticulous. Wang Donga didn't stand on ceremony. Even though Hui Yuhao was critically injured now, she was in a good mood. It was just that her heart was also aching at the same time. Whatever it was, Hui Yuhao was finally better. At least he was still alive. He did everything for her, which had landed him in this state. As Wang Donga thought of all this, her tears were filled with happiness even though her heart was still aching at his predicament. Tough, she had to be tough. Although she was in pain, she didn't continue crying. She drank the chicken soup to replenish her own energy. However, her eyes never left Hui Yuhao. Elder Xian left with the elders. Jiang Nan and Xiao Xiao wanted to stay behind to help Wang Donga look after Hui Yuhao, but Wang Donga declined their offer. She told them that she could cope on her own. Someone else was crying quietly, as Wang Dong'er fell asleep in Hui Yuhao's arms. Wang Qiu'er stood in front of her room and looked at the sky outside, which was getting dark. Her tears started to fall again. It's such a torment loving someone, especially when you know you can't be with that person. Hui Yuhao, would you have loved me like you love her if I had met you first? Why didn't I meet you earlier? Heavens! Why do you have to play such a trick on me? Wasn't Wang Dong'er a guy? Morning. When Wang Dong'er opened her eyes, she was stunned to discover that she had slept from the previous day's evening to today's morning. She had not slept so sweetly in a very long time. Although she was still feeling a little fatigued, she felt much refreshed. She looked at the man beside her close up. He was still in a deep sleep, and didn't look like he was about to wake up any time soon. His heartbeat was still very calm. Wang Dong'er carefully checked on his condition. After ascertaining that he was fine, she pecked his cheek and got up. After washing up, she began to help Hui Yuhao clean up. She washed him up before gently massaging his muscles. After that, she changed him into clean clothes. Hui Yuhao couldn't eat anything. Before Elder Xian left yesterday, he had left a bottle of pills behind. He had asked Wang Dong'er to feed Hui Yuhao. These pills had been created using more than 10 types of valuable ingredients, and would be sufficient to replenish his body. After Wang Dong'er retrieved the bottle of pills, she placed one of the pills into her mouth before kissing him and transferred the medicinal fluid into his mouth with her tongue. Her face was red. For an inexperienced young lady like her, this was too embarrassing. However, there was a determined look in her eyes. As she thought of how Hui Yuhao was ready to give up his life for her, she put her embarrassment aside. I'm his future wife, what's there to be shy about? After finishing this, Wang Dong'er went out to eat. After eating, she returned to Hui Yuhao's side and entered deep meditation. She finally managed to enter deep meditation this time. Night fell, and Wang Dong'er continued laying beside Hui Yuhao. She caressed his face and muttered into his eyes, Yuhao, I'm Dong'er. I've seen the medicinal herb that you brought back. Where did you find out about my injury? Do I really have an internal injury? I didn't even know. Yuhao, I miss you so much. I really want to hear your voice. You'll get better. No matter what, I'll be by your side to take care and wait on you. Will you wake up? You've been sleeping for too long. As long as you wake up, I'll promise you anything. Even if you want to get intimate with me, I won't object to it. I'll let you hug me to sleep every night, okay? Isn't that what you've always wished for? From today onwards, I'll accompany you like that to sleep. I'm already your wife. This is my responsibility. In fact, do you know that I'm very willing to sleep with you? I feel especially safe when I sleep with you. I feel very comfortable. Yuhao, wake up. I really miss you. I really, really miss you. As she finished speaking, Wang Dong'er was already sobbing a little. She opened Hui Yuhao's mouth and looked at his throat. It was completely scarlet red, as if his flesh was squirming and growing. The medicinal herb Wang Qiu'er had given him had a very strong healing effect on his injuries. Elder Zhuang had also commented that it was a miracle when he saw it. Perhaps the magical herb's strength could restore Hui Yuhao's voice. When Wang Dong'er saw Hui Yuhao's throat, she started wailing. He must be in a lot of pain. He was so deeply in love that he had swallowed boiling water so that he could spit out blood that wasn't frozen. Even Wang Dong'er didn't know when she fell asleep. When she was sleeping, her tear stains were still on her face. The days slowly passed. Wang Dong'er took good care of Hui Yuhao. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Hui Yuhao was still sleeping. Hui Yuhao's injuries had already healed after 10 days. Even his burned hands and vocal cords had been restored. His heartbeat also became stronger. Everything was progressing well. The tournament was approaching, but Hui Yuhao hadn't awoken yet. Evening. It was time for her to speak to him again. Yuhao, did you know? I ate 2 buns tonight. So many, right? I'm afraid that I'll grow fat. Wang Dong'er lowered her head as she spoke and looked down at her slim waist. Today's canteen food was especially delicious. Don't worry, I'll take care of myself. For you, I won't harm my body anymore. When you wake up, I'll let you see a healthy Dong'er. Will you be very happy because of this? I'll let you see a prettier Dong'er. Wang Dong'er continued speaking with a smile on her face. Did you know? Sometimes I'm not in a rush for you to wake up. The past few days have been fruitful for me. I love waiting on you. You were the one taking care of me all this while. You were also the one who cleaned our dorm room. It's my turn now. I know you've sacrificed a lot for me over these few years. However, you didn't know I was a girl back then. You really are a fool. We were living together for such a long time, but you didn't realize. Come to think of it, I still want to mock you for that. Oh right, eldest senior and the rest have been cultivating tirelessly. However, everything is affected greatly because you're not around. Furthermore, I can't compete because you are in this state. I told eldest senior that I'd be staying behind with you, and he agreed to my request. We are all representing the Tang sect this time. Eldest senior said that Nunna can be our first substitute. She's quite good. We can also make up our numbers by asking someone else from the sect. It would be great if you could wake up though. Even though you can't compete, everyone will still be in good spirits with your support. Oh, right. I haven't fed you your medicine. I'll talk to you after feeding you. Wang Donga cried for 15 minutes, and her tears drenched the front of Hu Yuhao's shirt. She only stopped after that. When she lifted her head to look at Hu Yuhao again, she discovered that he had already shut his eyes, and she panicked. She quickly wiped her tears away and called, Yuhao, Yuhao, are you okay? Hu Yuhao struggled to open his eyes and forced a slight smile for her. I'm fine. You must stay true to your words. After a few minutes of rest, he felt slightly better. Wang Donga was stunned for a moment. What do you mean? Hu Yuhao smiled and said, you said that you were willing to do anything as long as I woke up. You even promised to sleep with me. It'll be like that forever. You must keep your word. Wang Donga broke into a laugh and said, you are in this state, but you still remember these things. Hu Yuhao also laughed. It concerns my happiness. I'm going to sleep a while more. As he spoke, he shut his eyes again. Wang Donga quickly lay down beside him. She caressed his chest lightly, and used her light-type soul power to absorb the tears from his shirt. When Hu Yuhao opened his eyes again, it was already the next morning. He was also much better now. Wang Donga was waiting on him as usual. When she washed his body, she started to feel embarrassed again. After all, it was a different matter when he was awake. She lowered her head and didn't dare to look at him. She rubbed his body gently. Is the temperature fine? Wang Donga asked. Hu Yuhao smiled and said, it's good. Okay. Donga. Yes? Do you like my butt so much? You've cleaned it 6 times. What? Wang Donga's face turned red, and she quickly put the towel away before covering him with the blanket. Donga. Seeing Wang Donga's embarrassed look, Hu Yuhao couldn't help but call her. Yes? Wang Donga lowered her head, and her face turned even redder. Hu Yuhao said, I want to take my medicine. I'm a little hungry. Okay. Wang Donga rushed to get the medicine bottle. She placed a pill into her mouth. However, she saw Hu Yuhao's burning eyes when she lifted her head to look at him. Hu Yuhao was smiling as he looked at her. His eyes were filled with a comforted look. After helping Hu Yuhao change his clothes, Wang Donga helped to massage his muscles. As she rubbed his muscles, Wang Donga asked, Yuhao, where did you find out about my internal injury? Hu Yuhao was a little annoyed. Chiaoa is such a blabbermouth. She shouldn't have told you. Donga, I'll follow you back to the Clear Sky sect when my injury heals. I don't know if the yearning heartbroken grass can work on your injury. It's better to let Uncle Niu Tian and Tai Tan look after it. Wang Donga was doubtful as she looked at Hu Yuhao. What's going on? Who told you about my internal injury? Hu Yuhao shook his head and smiled. Don't ask me. I've already plucked the yearning heartbroken grass. Isn't everything fine now? Fine. Wang Donga was confused. Her tears were about to flow again as she looked at Hu Yuhao. Hu Yuhao panicked. Donga, don't cry. Don't worry, I'll get well. I must get well for you. In fact, I wasn't seriously injured this time, right? His mind wasn't very clear, as he'd just woken up. He had to watch his words even if he wanted to weave a lie. Wang Donga bit her lower lip. Stop talking. I know everything. Wang Chiaoa told me everything. In fact, I know even if you don't tell me. Was it the pouch? Hu Yuhao didn't make a sound. Wang Donga's lips twisted slightly, and she clenched her fist. Eldest uncle. Second uncle. The two of you. Hu Yuhao felt something wrong with the atmosphere, and hurriedly said, Donga, don't be mistaken. The two of them are doing this for your own good. Not anyone can pluck the yearning heartbroken grass. Only I can do so. It's only right that I went. It's fine as long as you are okay. All right. Wang Donga relaxed and didn't say anything else. She smiled and said, they are my uncles. Why would I blame them? All right, you should talk less since you just woke up. Go ahead and rest. I still haven't informed everyone that you're awake. Hui Yuhao said, oh. Then you should go and tell eldest senior. They are busy with their cultivation, so don't ask them to come over. I can't do anything anyway since I just woke up. Let me recover first. All right. That's also my intention. It's better not to let anyone disturb you. Lie down first. I'll go and wash your clothes. Okay. It's been tough on you, Donga. Wang Donga shook her head. It's what I should be doing. Shut your eyes and rest. As she spoke, she took the basin filled with Hui Yuhao's dirty clothes and went to the bathroom. She closed the bathroom door and couldn't control her emotions anymore. She clenched her fists tightly, and her face turned red from her anger and pain. Eldest uncle, second uncle, why did the two of you do such a thing to Yuhao? Wasn't the test at Clear Sky Peak enough? Chioa. How did she save me? I clearly felt that I was going to die then. His doubts and the ravishing figure caused him to open his eyes. He sighed. Hui Yuhao knew that he owed Wang Chioa another favor. Without her, he couldn't have survived. It's just that he didn't know what method she had used to save him. She saved his life, and it wasn't the first time. Chioa, how am I supposed to return this favor? Hui Yuhao took in a deep breath and felt an intense pain coming from his chest. To prevent Wang Donga from worrying, he stopped himself from shouting. He relaxed his body, and his pain slowly lessened. Hui Yuhao focused and inspected his own body. When he did, he was stunned. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Is this really my body? His body wasn't even in a bad condition. It was messy. His passageways were messed up. They were like wool that had formed knots again after being unfurled. The tips couldn't be found at all. He didn't use his soul power to resist the blazing sunspring water. His throat, windpipe and even internal organs were scorched. With the help of a weird force, his burnt organs had recovered. However, the recovery process became very messy because he didn't guide it. His organs were stuck together, and his passageways were jumbled up. Different energies were also present in these passageways. There was the heat from the blazing sunspring water, his own soul power and the origin energy that the Snow Empress had brought in. It was messy. On the surface, he seemed fine. However, he had only staved off death. The mystical force had protected his important organs so that the various energies within him wouldn't conflict. Otherwise, he would have died many times over. This was terrible. Even though Hui Yuhao's state of mind was still stable, he could only laugh bitterly to himself now. After he cleared his mind, Hui Yuhao did not panic. There was no point in panicking. He had to wait for his recovery to reach its peak before he could do anything. At the same time, as he woke up, the functions of his body started to recover too. Like this, the power of the life gold could be felt once again. Its powerful life energy allowed him to continue possessing a powerful life energy. No matter how his recovery went, it would become easier. After Bei Bei and the others heard that Hui Yuhao had woken up, they all came to visit him. Elder Xian came too. However, Elder Xian instructed that no one would be allowed to disturb Hui Yuhao. Hence, everyone could only visit him once a week. His recovery would be completely managed by Wang Donga. Hui Yuhao lay there for 3 days. In these 3 days, he did nothing. He quietly enjoyed Wang Donga's care. Indeed, it was a form of enjoyment. While his body could not move and his insides were all messed up, he could look at Wang Donga take care of him every day. This filled him with an unspeakable warmth. Particularly at night, when Wang Donga, blushing, climbed into bed next to him to sleep wearing only her underwear. This made his spiritual power recover extremely quickly. Perhaps this was the power of love. Of course, this could also be due to his Goddess of Light's soul-spirit fusion skill. Hui Yuhao did not tell Wang Donga the truth. He just said that he needed some time to recover. This was good too, because Wang Donga did not probe or ask him any more questions. All she did was care for him tirelessly. She did not want to put any pressure on him. To her, no matter what became of Hui Yuhao in the future, no matter whether he could recover or not, she would never leave him. Dawn, 3 days later. He opened his eyes, and in the depths of his twin pupils, a purple light flashed. Everything around him became much clearer, and with each thought that passed through his mind, he felt as if the entire Sea God's island was within his mental grasp. It turned out that everything was not as bad as he had thought. When she felt the slight change in Hui Yuhao, Wang Donga immediately roused herself. She sat up hurriedly and asked anxiously, Yuhao, are you fine? Hui Yuhao smiled at her and asked, do I look fine? Donga, close your eyes. Eh? Wang Donga looked at him suspiciously. Under his insistence, she closed her eyes. Her long eyelashes lightly touched the bottoms of her eyes, making her irresistibly alluring. In the next instant, Wang Dong'er saw it too. To her shock, she realized that she was looking at the entire Sea God's Island as if it were a 3D model. She could even see the colors of the island, as if she was a pair of eyes in the sky gazing down on the island. Elder Xian drank from a gourd in his room. Ever since he became the master of the Sea God's Pavilion, he could not be as degenerate as before. After all, he represented the highest level of Shrek Academy. However, he still liked his life of holding a gourd in one hand and a chicken drumstick in the other. However, he could now only do it within the confines of his room. However, no matter how much fine wine he drank these past few days, his mood could not get better. Hui Yuhao, what has happened to you? How can I answer to Elder Mu after I die? This child, really? Elder Xian could not voice his discontent in public. After all, he had done what he did to save the person he loved. He did not know if he would have the courage to do so himself. At this point, Elder Xian's dusky eyes narrowed. To him, it was as if the entire room had become brighter. Who's there? Elder Xian asked in a low voice. A powerful energy pulsed from his body. Elder Xian, it's me, a clear voice replied. Instantly, Elder Xian felt a warm spirit appear in his room. It did not dare to approach him, but instead stopped at his door. Then, a thin layer of purple started to spread and turned into a smiling face, which looked at him. Eh? This is... Elder Xian looked at the smiling face in shock. Yuhao. How did you do this? Of course, who could the face be other than Hui Yuhao? Hui Yuhao smiled slightly and said, while my body is weak, I used some herbs that helped to increase my spiritual power when I was helping Dong'er find her yearning heartbroken grass. They allowed my spiritual power to increase exponentially. It is like my spiritual eyes has undergone a second evolution. This has allowed my spiritual power to reach the concrete material realm, and thus, I can communicate with you from afar. This is a manifestation of my spiritual power. While I'm not yet adept at wielding it, I'm sure time will better it. Elder Xian looked at him dumbfounded and asked, how's your body? Your spiritual power can do this. Hui Yuhao chortled and said, don't worry. I'll get better. Elder Xian chucked his gourd to the side and said, I'll head over right now. As he said that, he flew out of the door. In the blink of an eye, he was outside Hui Yuhao's room. As a Class 98 Transcendent Doluo, who was only a step away from becoming an Ultimate Doluo, Elder Xian could do everything that Hui Yuhao had just done. While he was not a spirit-type soul master, he could also force his spiritual power to take a concrete shape. However, he could not let the manifestation of his spiritual power leave his field of view. If he did, he would lose control over it. In terms of spiritual power, Hui Yuhao could not compare to Elder Xian. However, in terms of control of his spiritual power, as well as the quality of his spiritual power, Hui Yuhao had already surpassed him. While he did not know how powerful Hui Yuhao's spiritual power would be if he used it for offense, he knew that Hui Yuhao was not permanently crippled. Furthermore, his spiritual power was still increasing. Hui Yuhao chortled and replied, metaphysical, it has more or less stabilized. Elder Xian asked him immediately, what about your spirit eyes? Have they improved, too? Hui Yuhao nodded. Elder Xian mumbled to himself, second awakening, this is the second awakening indeed. Your spiritual power could soon be the strongest on the entire continent. While some in the body sect have experienced a second awakening too, I can be sure that at your level, no one is more powerful than you. This is excellent. How are your wounds? Hui Yuhao said, my wounds are still problematic. However, I'm confident. For the academy, for the Tang sect, for Dong'er and I'll do my best to recover. Elder Xian nodded and said seriously, don't rush it. Hui Yuhao chortled and said, I won't, don't worry. With Dong'er accompanying me, I'm in no rush at all. Wang Dong'er gripped his hand lightly and smiled. She wished to take care of him forever. After this incident, their mindset toward their relationship had experienced a huge change. Their understanding of love way surpassed that of their peers. If Hui Yuhao had died outside, the impact on Shrek Academy would have been immeasurable. The blow would have been akin to the entire academy losing its hope for the future and direction. Hui Yuhao's face was filled with regret. He really had not been thinking straight at that point in time. Elder Xian, don't be angry. I admit that I was wrong. I'll accept whatever punishment the academy imposes on me, just don't expel me. Elder Xian snorted coldly and said, expulsion. Don't tempt me. Rest well for now. After you come up with a recovery plan, inform me immediately. Elder Zhuang and I will help you. Yes, Hui Yuhao replied respectfully. Elder Xian stomped out angrily. He only smiled slightly when he left the room. It was a weird smile as he mumbled to himself, a second awakening of the body soul and twin martial souls. Was there such a precedent on the continent? I don't think so. Records, records. Well done, little bastard, you almost made me die from anger. As she watched Elder Xian leave, Wang Dong's pretty eyes were apologetic. It's all because of me. Yu Hao. Hui Yu Hao smiled and said, what do you mean by that? It's my fault for not thinking it through. Actually, I enjoy my current life very much. I don't have to care about anything, I don't have to do anything, I don't have to cultivate. I can look at you every single day. This is a blissful life indeed. Come, my goddess of light, give me a kiss. Wang Dong could not stifle her laughter as she said, you have interesting thoughts, indeed. Lie there and don't move and come up with your recovery plan. When you're well, I'll let you kiss me. Hui Yu Hao's eyes lit up as he said, as many times as I want. Wang Dong's face turned red, but when she saw his look of anticipation, she nodded and said, yes. Hui Yu Hao gleefully exclaimed, great, then I shall start immediately. Don't worry, I'll be very, very careful. For my Dong, I'll get well as fast as I can. Wait for me, where should I kiss? Should I kiss your face, or should I kiss your... Go away. Wang Dong blushed as she walked away. After 10 days of rest, Hui Yu Hao's body had recovered quite a bit. The power of his life gold was fully revealed. While his injuries were still there, his body brimmed with life. His self-recovery ability was back, and had started to absorb some of the extremely cold origin energy of heaven and earth. While its speed of absorption was slow, Hui Yu Hao carefully observed that there was nothing he could not do. In 2 years, all of the origin energy of heaven and earth in his body, other than that trapped in his soul bones, would be completely absorbed. Then, it would be a lot easier to heal himself. However, Hui Yu Hao could not afford any delays. There were only 20 more days until the tournament. In 20 days' time, he had to recover all his battling abilities. Without Tang Ya and Bei Bei, there would be no him. One could say that the Tang sect had made him. This time, they were fighting for the Tang sect. How could Hui Yu Hao miss it? While he did not say it, he was determined to recover. Only then could he head to the Sun Moon Empire with everyone else. He was not only the center of his team, because of his understanding of the Sun Moon Empire, but also their hope for winning. Furthermore, if he waited a year, all of the problematic passageways in his body would have fully set. If he wanted to make a change then, it would be much more difficult. After his recovery plan was finalized, Hui Yu Hao started to act. His plan was simple. He would start small before moving on to the more severe injuries. He would be in charge of the initial stages of his recovery. After a careful analysis, Hui Yu Hao, Elder Xian, and Elder Mu discovered that Hui Yu Hao's body could be split into 3 different conditions. Some parts of his body were intact, some parts of it were slightly injured, and some parts of it were severely messed up and badly injured. Hence, Hui Yu Hao had to first heal his lighter injuries before progressing to the more serious ones. His legs and head were perfect. These 3 parts of his body were completely uninjured. His hands were slightly injured, as were the passageways in his shoulders. The most problematic part of his body was his torso. That was where the problems lay. After an entire day's worth of circulation, Hui Yu Hao could slowly and awkwardly raise his 2 legs. Wang Dong was so happy that she wept. At the very least, his legs could move. Every energy field in his lower limbs regained its feeling. This was only the first day of recovery, and he had already obtained such good results. This made Elder Xian, Elder Mu, and Wang Dong extremely happy. Through the circulation of his soul power, Hui Yu Hao slowly withdrew the soul power in his legs, and then combined them with the soul power in his meridians. This allowed him to control more than 2/3 of his soul power. Of course, he could not use his soul power straight away. His passageways were battered by both the extreme chill of the origin energy of heaven and earth and the extreme heat of the blazing sunspring. They were already weak and messed up. All Hui Yu Hao was trying to do was establish a foundation in his own body. He next started treatment of his arms. The passageways in his arms had been moderately injured due to the burns on his hands. Even after some self-recovery, they were still chaotic. In comparison, the soul power in his arms could not be compared to that of his dantian. It could not even compare to his legs. However, Hui Yu Hao had one advantage, which was the advantage of the soul bones in his arms. His left arm had the ice jade scorpion left arm bone, and his right arm had the dark golden terraclaw bear's right palm bone. With these 2 soul bones, while the flesh and skin of his hands were severely injured, the bones in his hands were safe. If not, if his bones had melted, he would have become a true cripple. It was not easy to open his meridians and remodel them. Actually, it was a very painful thing to do. However, at this point, Hui Yu Hao was not fighting alone. They had a complete plan for what to do. Under Elder Zhuang's assistance, Hui Yu Hao forced open every single meridian. As blood spurted from his hands and countless wounds appeared, he was able to force them back into their original positions and fuse with his body once more. Yu Hao, are you ready? Elder Zhuang asked. It was morning, and Wang Donga helped Hu Yu Hao clean his body. He then lay supine on his bed. When she was washing him, Wang Donga's hands could not stop trembling. No matter what he said, she could not be mollified. The operation today was too important. If it succeeded, Hu Yu Hao would make a complete recovery. If it failed, I'm ready. Hu Yu Hao nodded at Elder Zhuang while smiling slightly at Elder Xian and Wang Donga. Elder Zhuang said, there can be no error. If there is, you will die. Hu Yu Hao chortled, there will be no error. I'm sturdy, and I won't die so easily. Elder Zhuang, Elder Xian, don't worry. Get ready to start. Snow Lady. At his command, a ray of orange light appeared from his forehead. Was that not the Snow Lady? The Snow Lady was different compared to before. Initially, she had resembled an infant, but now she had grown up visibly. She looked like a girl who was over 2 years old. The only thing that remained unchanged were her deep blue eyes. Dad, the Snow Lady cried out, shocking everyone. She could talk, in human speech. Hu Yu Hao said in surprise, Snow Lady, you can talk. Snow Lady pointed to Hu Yu Hao's chest and said seriously, Dad, pain. Hu Yu Hao smiled and shook his head and said, Daddy is not in pain. I'll get better soon. In a while, it'll all depend on you. The Snow Lady nodded her head vigorously and said, Dad, no pain, no fear. Hu Yu Hao chortled and said, get ready, I'll guide you. The Snow Lady opened her eyes wider and gently nodded her head. Hu Yu Hao's eyes turned purple. A layer of purplish gold light appeared, completely enveloping the Snow Lady. The fire poison from the blazing sunspring was an extreme form of flame. To heal it, one would need a very powerful form of ice to protect Hu Yu Hao's body. Furthermore, only a powerful type of ice could draw out the fire poison. Hu Yu Hao's soul power was mostly in his torso and hence, he could not use it. The only way to do so was through the Snow Lady. The Snow Lady floated next to the bed and knelt down next to Hu Yu Hao. With her small hand, she slowly touched Hu Yu Hao's bare chest. After the incident in the setting sun forest, Hu Yu Hao had matured. He also did things more seriously. Like he had said, he would not allow an accident. This was because he still had a trump card, which was the million-year soul ring from the Sky Dream Iceworm. Under the Sky Dream Iceworm's guidance, the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion's ultimate ice power was the last line of defense. It was able to protect his heart perfectly. At that moment, the extreme chill caused the circulation of blood in his heart to fall to 1/10 of its normal pace, turning Hu Yu Hao's face white. However, the fire poison had been expelled. While the fire poison had been expelled, it was now up to Elder Zhuang to control Hu Yu Hao's massive outflow of blood. Elder Zhuang intoned, return to your positions. The two elders acted together. The soul power Elder Xian released vibrated slightly, and Hu Yu Hao's entire body trembled violently. He spat out a mouthful of purplish red blood. The Snow Lady raised her right hand, and a ray of dark blue light shot out. Instantly, the blood froze into an ice cube, which she held onto. Elder Xian's hands remained where they were, while Elder Zhuang started to hit Hu Yu Hao's body rapidly with his palms. The two elders worked together. Elder Xian protected Hu Yu Hao's internal organs, while Elder Zhuang helped get his passageways back in order. Throughout this entire process, not only did Hu Yu Hao have to endure great pain, but he also had to use his spiritual detection to assist the elders in finding the right spots. Wang Donga had turned around by now. She stood near Hu Yu Hao's head. Her beautiful eyes were icy as she continually used a towel to wipe away the filthy blood that came out of Hu Yu Hao's mouth and nose. To calm herself, she appeared to have sealed off her feelings. If not, she probably would not have been able to endure the emotional pain. The entire process did not take very long, only around 3 minutes. However, to the four of them, these 3 minutes felt like a year. Finally, Elder Zhuang stopped. With one last stroke, he let his hands sweep Hu Yu Hao's body from his shoulders all the way to his abdomen. A powerful vital energy reverberated through his body, and then slowly rose up through his body from his guts, following the motion of Elder Zhuang's hands. A massive amount of filthy blood spurted out from Hu Yu Hao's mouth. This was the clotted blood in his body. Elder Zhuang had just expelled it from him. Now, Elder Zhuang's hands were back on Hu Yu Hao's shoulders. Both he and Elder Xian sighed in relief. Color seemed to be seeping back into Hu Yu Hao's face. Elder Zhuang's head steamed. The treatment just now had drained him, too. While the entire process did not require a lot of soul power, it was still extremely stressful for him. He had to organize all of the chaotic passageways in Hu Yuhao's body, place his organs back into position, and expel his clogged blood. This process had to be completed quickly, as Hu Yuhao might not be able to withstand it. If that happened, his efforts would have been wasted. Furthermore, the longer it took, the more blood Hu Yuhao would lose. Hu Yuhao panted and took in great gasps of air. His chest, which had showed no real movement in the past 20 days, started to rise and fall gently. Wang Dong'er had already used up many towels. She did not let a single drop of filthy blood stain his body. Elder Zhuang turned to look at Elder Xian and nodded slightly. Elder Xian withdrew his soul power. However, the two elders looked at Hu Yuhao anxiously. Now that his organs were back in position and his main passageways had been cleared, the important thing was whether Hu Yuhao's body could rebuild its circulatory system. This included the circulation of his blood and soul power, and whether he could control their circulation. Part 1 end here.